let's jump right into this webinar, shall we? One of the things that I'm always interested in is who is with us on these webinars. And I think this is particularly true, this particular series of webinars. I've decided to do something a little bit more in depth this summer, one webinar building upon another. In the first webinar, we looked at one aspect of Sparkhouse Digital, which I'll get into in a bit. And now we're going to look at another aspect of Sparkhouse Digital today. And then there's two more webinars in this series to come. So if you attend all three or view them in the on-demand version, you'll get a really kind of an in-depth understanding, hopefully, of Sparkhouse Digital. All right, so let's go to some polls, shall we? I'm going to select a poll, and here's my first one that I'm curious about. I'm going to be using this throughout this summer series, and maybe you can let me know here. How many have you attended? Well, this would be 2, I guess. But have you attended the June one yet, or have viewed it in the on-demand version? I'm curious about that, and let me know. All right. Well, it looks like we're having a good response here to folks that have attended the June one. So I'm glad you were able to take that in. Kind of curious if you did any of the homework that maybe I assigned and got some of your leaders into the My Account area, because that's really helpful as we move into this next phase, namely the planner and the calendar. I know that recruiting leaders for Christian education is always a challenge, but hopefully something like Sparkhouse Digital can make it fun and make resources easily available, and maybe even spike some curiosity and creativity among your folks. So, okay, I'm going to close this poll. I'm going to pull up another one here. What is your level of experience with Sparkhouse Digital? Are you totally new? Have you poked around a bit? Do you consider yourself maybe not the primary user? Maybe there's a director or maybe a church administrator who's handling the scheduling, but maybe you're someone who is really kind of used to being in Sparkhouse Digital, but eager to learn more. And it looks like that's the primary position of some of our users, those who are comfortable but eager to learn more. And hopefully you will learn more in this webinar. All right, I've got one more poll that I want to use, and this is just to find out your role as it relates to Sparkhouse Digital. And are you a volunteer, a Christian education leader, youth leader? Are you a professional? Are you a pastor? Are you other? If you're an other, what other are you? Maybe drop that into the questions pod. So we got looks like about we do have some professionals here. Oh boy, this is a mixed bag of folks. Wow, about a third of you are volunteers, about a third of you are pastors, a third of you are others, and you know, wait, that doesn't add up quite right. But the rest of you are youth and Christian education professionals. Oh, kind of a generations in faith together coordinator. Yeah, there are some multi-generational things in Sparkhouse Digital. We'll dig into that, especially in the next webinar when we dig into some of the bonus and additional content. But we will look at some of that in this webinar too, especially in the beginning part of this webinar. Because in the beginning part of the webinar, I do give an overview. I don't know to what degree people are familiar with Sparkhouse Digital, so I do like to give a quick overview of the resource. So let's do that right now. What are some of the key features of Sparkhouse Digital? Well, if you are a power user, maybe you don't need to know this information, but if you're not, do know that there are, if you subscribe to all 3 modules of Sparkhouse Digital, there's 15,000 and growing, I mean, mounting a number of resources. I was very excited to see the new content that's being added for fall. It does some fun things with Frolic in particular in the early childhood module, Sparkhouse Digital. But there's also across those 3 age categories, early childhood, children, and youth, many resources that are constantly being added. That's the beauty of this platform. There are some tools in Sparkhouse Digital, calendar tools and planning tools that we will be specifically looking at in this webinar here in just a little bit. And Sparkhouse Digital allows you to design an early childhood Sunday school or youth ministry program that accommodates the unique needs of your confirmation. It allows for a lot of variety, minimizes the amount of crazy searching you need to do on Pinterest, this, that, or the other place, provides some branding that pulls things together, and hopefully gives you a trusted theological base to work with, so you don't have to screen absolutely everything you do when you plan. People have often asked me, what's in Sparkhouse Digital? And I just said 15,000 unique items, but that includes entire curricula, frolic nursery for the little ones, the wee ones in your congregation. It's a program that can be used in nurseries or for very early childhood settings. It includes using the board books. People that have been developing these frolic resources are really in tune with child development and child psychology and what's appropriate for kids and parents at different age groups. Frolic Family is a version of Frolic that can be used in parent and tot settings. And there's Frolic Preschool that comes with another set of books that are appropriate for preschoolers. And Frolic doesn't just teach the faith, but it also, as I said, is developmentally appropriate. So kids are learning things about their emotions, are learning things that are appropriate to their intellectual development. So that all kind of works together with Frolic, if you're not familiar with it. Really great award-winning board books and children's Bibles. You get in the early childhood module of Sparkhouse Digital the world resources that are designed for the younger ones, as well as the Spark resources. Those numbers there represent the number of lessons that are in Sparkhouse Digital related to each of those separate curricula. The same can be said about our children's module. There are core curricula like Whirl, Spark, Holy Moly, Connect, but there's other resources that are found in Sparkhouse Digital, like the multi-generational resources, Good Stewards Together and Journey Together, and also some summer resources, including the Renew VBS resource. Lots of lessons related to each of these core curricula, and even more when you count some of the ancillary things that I spoke about. Spark and Whirl are found in a couple of different modes. You can do a 2-year scope and sequence that's called Classroom, that starts in Genesis and ends in the New Testament. You can do a lectionary version of Spark and Whirl that are tied in the Revised Common Lectionary. There's an all-kids version of Spark and Whirl that are designed for one-room schoolhouse settings. And there is also a rotation version of Spark that allows you to work through Bible stories based on drama stations and art stations and music stations and science stations and what have you, like a VBS. So you can really break Spark down into a VBS kind of a situation. And with rotation in particular, everything you need to do Spark rotation is in Sparkhouse Digital. When we move into the youth area, again, a number of core curricula, like Here We Stand. We have got confirmation curricula called Collaborate. We brought in various developers from different faith traditions, including Lutheran, Methodist, Presbyterian, who help put these various curricula together, Collaborate. And there's a form version also that has Lutheran, Methodist, and Presbyterian content. It's called Reformed Traditions for several mini courses based on Reform. There's a Connect Tween curriculum. If you notice that Connect was also under the children's section, that's because Connect is a tween curriculum, and so it can go both ways, I suppose, depending on your kids. And then TBD, problem-based learning curriculum, Think, Believe, Do, and Echo, which is kids finding themselves in the biblical story, echo the story. Okay, so that's kind of an overview. And again, the numbers represent the number of lessons in each of those curricula. So quite a bit of content. When you start to add all that up, it gets to be kind of overwhelming. It's always a great idea to go onto the website or check into your Sparkhouse catalog to see that overview page of what each of the curricula are and why you might want to use those. For example, here's what an overview page looks like for Think, Believe, Do, how it works, the number of units, depending on what kind of group you have. This is the curriculum that you might want to use. I'm quickly putting up a QR code If you're using your phone for this, this may not work for you, but if you do have your phone handy, that QR code will take you to the PDF version, the electronic version of our Sparkhouse catalog. So if you want to flash it with your phone, you'll have that catalog available to you. Or you can go to, again, wearesparkhouse.org and go under free resources, and the catalog is available to you there as well. So as we look at each of the curricula, and this is a Spark curricula, Spark All Kids, what kinds of things do you get in Sparkhouse Digital? You'll get all the leader materials. You don't have to worry about who's got the leader book anymore, because all your leaders that have access to Sparkhouse Digital can find the leader materials that they need for their lessons. You get digital media, and that includes videos for a number of our curricula. Whirl has videos, Collaborate has videos, Reform has videos, Connect has videos, Holy Moly has videos. There's quite a bit of animated video content in Sparkhouse Digital. This is a Whirl video. I kind of like the Whirl scene because you've got these sort of amorphous, multicolored characters that are on a real life church background. It sort of blends the fantasy and the reality in kind of a fun way. But I added up all the videos in their Sparkhouse Digital. There's like 560 animated videos that you have a license as a subscriber to stream or download. The only thing we ask is that you keep it in places that the public does not have access to. So don't just drop it on your Facebook page. If you have a private group, that's one thing, or if you're giving people access to a Google Drive or Dropbox, that's okay. But these are copyrighted resources. Don't put them out for public consumption on YouTube or Facebook or whatever. And you also have music. There's quite a bit of music in Sparkhouse Digital. You can get the lyric versions of dozens of songs. You can get the sing-along versions as well. So this is among the things that I count under digital media in Sparkhouse Digital that are available for you to stream or to download. There's reproducible extras like coloring pages, worship bulletins. The worship bulletins are really significant add. I mean, you can use those for the worship services, and of course the lectionary ones are tied into each Sunday festival commemoration of the church year, but they can also be used as take-home pages or activity sheets or what have you. And so those are all among the downloads. There's art extras and a variety of other, what we used to call blackline masters, that you can immediately download and print on in your local setting. We are especially keen on providing family resources that tie the lesson into what's happening in the family. This is one for Spark Activate Faith. Read it, talk about it, live it. Gives the family an opportunity to do some things at home in regard to the lesson of the week. We talk about exclusive content in Sparkhouse Digital. There's standalone curricula that you can use without any additional resources. There's hybrid learning resources, including take-home kits and what have you that we created during COVID. There's holiday and bonus content in Sparkhouse Digital. Here's an example of a curricula for youth, wholeness and holiness, that's based on the book of Leviticus, that is found only as a digital download in Sparkhouse Digital. There's no print version of wholeness and holiness. And this kind of a format allows us, again, to continually add content to enrich your subscription to Sparkhouse Digital. And our developers are always really keen to do that. I mentioned holidays and events. There's Christmas programs in Sparkhouse Digital. There's a really great Reformation event that was added last year, but people weren't gathering. And so we noticed that there's not a lot of downloads for the Reformation Steps Back in Time event. But the developers reminded me to emphasize this because they're just really pleased about this resource. So I'll give it a little thumbs up here in this setting. We talked about music just a little bit ago, the MP3s, but that's not the only kind of musical resource you get in Sparkhouse Digital. You get scores to the music as a download, and you also get PowerPoint slides of the music as a download out of Sparkhouse Digital. So it's like, how do you even begin to talk about all of these resources in Sparkhouse Digital? And as I said earlier, there are new resources that are being added all the time. The prime example of that is being the multi-generational resources, Journey Together and Good Stewards Together, that you can use 12 intergenerational summer events complete in Sparkhouse Digital. And one of the things that people are really appreciating are our digital activity kits for Lent, for fall, for Christmas Advent, for summer. We've done now 2 years worth of these events, and this is something that we really saw our subscribers doing, namely grabbing content and putting together various activity kits for their families. But our developers felt like they knew the content better than anyone, and so they took upon the challenge to do what a lot of our subscribers were doing entrepreneurially, but they were actually doing it in a way that has a little bit more cohesion and some overarching pedagogy. So that's our digital activity kits. And I can get into the digital activity kits in depth, but it's like a rabbit hole. This is the Get Started guide for a Advent digital activity kit, and so we want to support your use of all of these resources in kind of a cohesive way as we make this mosaic experience of Sparkhouse Digital. Finally, if you are an early childhood subscriber to Sparkhouse Digital, there's a really cool version of what you may be familiar with, namely Cradle Roll. Did you send out cards after babies were born or baptized? Did you try to connect with families between that time and between Sunday school by way of mail or some other kind of resources? There's now a digital way to do this in the early childhood version of Sparkhouse Digital. I explained this in detail in the previous webinar when we went under the My Account settings. That's where you can find out what it is and find out how to get your family started in it. But it's an automated newsletter. Once you get your families in there and the age of the child in there, it automatically pumps out on a monthly basis age-appropriate faith formation resources for families. I'm just looking here at the Jody said, I used your Advent wreath and green Christmas information from the online resources in my Sunday school class. That's awesome, Jody. Thank you for saying that. You know, these have been challenging days, but we've been trying to do as much as we can to keep you and your kids, your families connected. It was great, Jody says. Thank you for the affirmation there. Okay, so why are you here today? I assume you're here today because you want to dig into the planning functions and the calendar functions of Sparkhouse Digital. And I'm going to go live and do a quick little demo of something that I have done. And then maybe we'll open up the mics and allow you to ask some questions about how you can use the calendar and planning tools in Sparkhouse Digital. All right, so when you go to sparkhousedigital.org, you can get here directly, or you can get here through the We Are Sparkhouse site. Certainly, you can agree to subscribe. You can get a 30-day free trial. You get some background information about Sparkhouse Digital, and on it goes. Some FAQs there. So, and then the pricing as well, if you're not already a subscriber, which I'm sure you'll find to be quite reasonable given the access to resources that you have and the growing ability of Sparkhouse Digital to serve you. I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And there I am. I'm going to sign into the children's module. I could sign into any of these. I tend to start with the children's module because it is the largest module of resources in Sparkhouse Digital. This is the home page of the children's module of Sparkhouse Digital. You'll see all the curriculum tiles here. Each one of these tiles digs into more and more content. You could take a quick look at any of these tiles. You could explore more deeply into each of these. So for example, if I clicked this here, it opens all of the quarters or whatever we want to call them. And then you can go even further into each of these. You click the arrows, you go into even further into each of these. Let's take a look at grades 3 and 4. This is just one lesson we're talking about here. You go even further into one of these, and that's where you start getting into the individual elements of a lesson. And maybe you want to download all of these right now, or maybe you just want to download a coloring page. You can do it either way. Or maybe you don't know what to download and you want to view things first. So you can get various previews of each of these items, like the children's message, for instance. But I think for this webinar in particular, this tool right here is the most interesting. Maybe you want to go through and you want the pastor to have access to all of the children's messages on the Sunday that lesson is going to be used. So you can add this to the calendar. Let's just pretend, for example, I realize that we're in rural lectionary and this lesson is not being used this coming Sunday. But let's say you wanted to go through and you wanted to add all the lessons to a Sunday. So you add the calendar. And this is getting our feet wet into the calendar and planning functions, which I think are just a really significant aspect of Sparkhouse Digital. All right, so I added that to the calendar. Well, let's find it now. There it is, Sunday. The Unforgiving Servant children's messages. Now, if your pastor is accustomed to using Sparkhouse Digital, they can look in there and they can find a particular resource. Now, if you're in my previous webinar, you'll know that you can add leaders to your account by way of the My Account area. You can do this ahead of time before you ever get into the planner, before you ever use the calendar. And just to review, there's your leaders in My Account. Here's the leaders that we have in our program. Add new leader. I would try to add as many leaders as you can. Maybe they don't even want to volunteer this year, but they've been faithful volunteers in the past. Can be visible, and if they maybe agree to fill in as a substitute one Sunday, they're there for you, and you can assign it to them. But don't forget, there's music in there. Maybe you want to add your music leaders or the pastor for the children's lessons and all that kind of thing. So adding new leaders ahead of time gives you the access to assign content to people in the planner. All right, I am going to walk through something that I have created in the planner for this coming Advent and Christmas. So what have I done ahead of this webinar in Sparkhouse Digital? Well, let's go to the calendar. I said I mentioned that I did something for Advent and Christmas, so let's jump ahead to November. This is a step 2 webinar, so I call it step 2, Sunday Advent to Epiphany plan. And the first thing I wanted to do in my Advent and Epiphany plan was I wanted to get some newsletters out. I'm using the Holy Moly curriculum, as you can see. And there's these Holy Moly Adventures in Advent newsletters. So I thought, okay, I would like my parish administrator, Alyssa Zorb, I've added her to this little task here on Sundays, to have access to these newsletters. And so you see, this is her name. This is how I added her by way of the add button. Here's all of my leaders that are available for me to add, save. I've connected Alyssa now to this this set of content. Alyssa can go in by way of this little caret here, bring it down, and then download this content. Grades 1 and 2, grades 3 or 4, download all. So my parish administrator can go down there, download the resource. It'll take a little bit. Okay, so it downloaded my tray, open up, and there's my newsletters. So my created home, Advent wreath, a serve together Christmas list flip, take a hike, second week of Advent. So she can break these apart and send these to our families that are in our Christian education program. I've assigned that to her. I placed that resource in the calendar, and I have assigned it to my parish administrator, Alyssa. So what else have I placed in the calendar? Well, that's November. So that gets us started. I selected a set of Sundays. In this case, it's Sunday, the 4th of December through Sunday, the 8th of January. And I know that there's enough Holy Moly lessons to cover those Sundays. I've also gone through the process of adding my leaders to this Sunday. So if I look I go under the edit button, I've got my team of John and Kathy who are handling grades K through 2. I've got my team of Benjamin, Chelsea, and Adam who are handling grades 3 through 4. And thankfully, Kathy and Adam are kind of they can kind of float and are comfortable with both grades, and they're also really comfortable with Sparkhouse Digital. So I also gave them access to all the resources because they're kind of my right and left hand people here on Sunday morning, and so I just wanted them to have things available. Now, when it comes to available leaders, again, these are all the available leaders that I have for this particular lesson. If I am one of those leaders, and I should probably say this, I haven't said it yet, only people who have director level access can create these plans. Your leaders, there's leaders and there's directors. Your leaders cannot create plans. They cannot add stuff, content to the calendar. But they can do this. Your leaders can go in and download the resources that they need for that Sunday. If I'm John or Kathy, I can go in here and I can hit the download button, and I'll get this screen. Now, this is a little bit confusing to people who are not used to how Sparkhouse Digital operates. There's actually two download buttons here. There is the video download button, and there's the printed content download button. The reason why there's two different download buttons is because videos are such a large file that it can take quite a while to download a video depending on what your bandwidth is. And so our developers have said, let's separate that out, let the video work along in the background while people have access to the print resources. So if I hit this download, eventually my video will start to download. Okay, there it goes. It starts to download. There's a little cycle. It's taken a while, as you can see. So I'm also going to hit the print resource download. This actually gives me a little bit of time to talk about the kind of print resources that are in Sparkhouse Digital. Sparkhouse Digital is designed to support leaders and directors. The consumable products, such as leaflets, are available only by way of watermark feature prep versions. Sparkhouse Digital is not designed to download the consumable learner resources. Many of those learner resources, like leaflets and handbooks and what have you, were really designed in very specific ways, some with perforations, some with stickers, full color, it goes on, different paper widths and even paper weights. And so the leaflets are not available in Sparkhouse Digital, but everything else is, and more, because these are high quality zip files. If you're familiar with this process, these files are condensed and they need to be extracted. I'm just going to extract it to my my download folder. And now you have, for grades K through 2, the leader would have the coloring pages. Here's the coloring pages and various other resources, like the family page, the leader guide, and the leaflet preview. All right. The same is true of the video. So the video has been downloaded. Here's the video that, again, can be either downloaded to a Google Drive or a thumb drive or some other kind of a drive for play in your various monitors. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to X out of this. I'm going to close my Sunday, my Annunciation Sunday, and just walk down a little bit further. So on Wednesday of December 21st, there's a Christmas program that we're going to be using. And you can check that Christmas program out. Everybody's involved in the Christmas program. We know it's all hands on deck, so everybody's going to be doing that. So it's under all. There you go. So there's the Christmas program that I'm downloading. So among the different kinds of bonus content in Sparkhouse Digital are entire seasonal programs such as this. Take a quick look at it. There it is. Director guide, production notes. Looks like there's 13 pages of this, including the script itself. Okay, close this Christmas program down for Wednesday. Not everybody's watching football on the 1st. Maybe some people want to get together, do a intergenerational Christmas event that reviews the Christmas season. And then the plan that I created ends with a holy moly lesson on the Magi. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pause and I'm going to look at the questions pod. Sasha didn't struggle to have leaders on board with accessing things online. And you know, one of the things that is true of these lessons, if they're not necessarily using the planner or the calendar, I mean, you don't have to have your leaders grab content that could just be for your purposes. But even if it's just for my purposes as a program director, I can go to this Sunday and I can download all the resources that I need and make it available for them to as a handout or send it to them in an email or what have you. So you know, it's helpful for me as a director, perhaps, to organize my seasons or my Christian education cycle using Sparkhouse Digital. I will continue to press on, but I'm happy to answer any specific questions you might have of your use of the calendar and the planner. All right, let's start from scratch here, shall we? I'm going to go back to the planner. Now, you can say, I need a plan for fall 2022. Let's say we're starting it before Labor Day on some Sunday, the 28th, with kind of a kickoff. And this is going to go through, because I've already got something going on in December, we're going to go through the 27th. Now, maybe your program covers a couple of days. Maybe you've got Sunday opportunities for Christian education, and maybe you've got Wednesday opportunities for Christian education. You can plan both under a single program, although it's a little unwieldy because you have to choose between different curricula because you're probably not using the same curricula on Sundays as you are on Wednesdays. I prefer just to plan fall 2022 Sundays. And that way, I feel like I have more freedom using the planner than if I picked a couple of days in a single plan. I like separating those out a little bit more. I just feel it's more efficient. So if we just do the Sundays, I will then click next. Now you choose your content. There's lots of content in Sparkhouse Digital. So you begin by selecting the curriculum you want to use. Hopefully by now you've done some research in your curriculum, you've thought about your kids, your church, the age level that you're working with here, and you're saying, okay, well, I have chosen to use World Classroom for this experience. And you're already given a hint which ones are appropriate because World Classroom is a Genesis to New Testament 2-year curriculum. It repeats Genesis, New Testament, and gives you different stories for each of the 2 years. We're going to start with year gold for the fall because that's what we're planning here. We're going to include some bonus lessons and some leader support and the music. And let's say we don't have pre-K that we're scheduling here, but we do have these other grades. And then you click next. So what Sparkhouse, the planner, will do for you then is give you a list of all of these resources that you can drag onto the various days on the calendar. Okay, so if I go through here and I look for the various days of the calendar, I'll see all the days that I have now selected. But these days don't have content yet. So it's now my task to add content. Well, I definitely want to add things like director tools to this. So maybe the first thing we're going to do is not have a class. Oh, let's go back to August. Sorry, is not have a class, but maybe we're going to have kind of a training experience. So I'm going to add the director tools to this experience. So let's say, gosh, we don't know how many people we're going to have on Labor Day. So I'm just going to add in the beginning. Then we'll do God's covenant with Noah. And see, it's just a drag and drop Abraham and Sarah. It's just a drag and drop situation. Rebecca and Rebecca and Isaac. I did drive up, there you are. And then go to the next. And so on you go. And if you decide not to use a certain lesson, maybe you want to skip over one of these. Maybe you don't have time. Maybe there's something else going on in the life of the church. You can do that. You just drag whatever lesson you want to any given day. So now we're in a situation with Joseph and his brothers where you look and say, okay, who do I want leading these lessons? I can pre-select leaders to certain age groups so that I don't have to do this from scratch all the time. So in your My Account area, you can already have all the leaders that are accustomed to doing grades 1 and 2, or all the leaders that are accustomed to doing grades 3 or 4. But maybe they don't do every Sunday. So you would say, okay, let's take everybody but Kathy out. Let's take well, Benjamin, that's appropriate for Joseph and his brothers. Let's leave Benjamin in. And so you can decide then who has access to these lessons just with a click of a button, and then you say save. So if you've got all of your leaders already set up in your My Account area, they all show up. And maybe Kathy does it one week and John does it the next week. Well, you can assign them that by way of the edit button in Sparkhouse Digital Calendar. So now as I look at this, Joseph and his brothers, I'll see that Kathy's up. She downloads the resources she needs. Benjamin's up. He downloads the resources he needs. Adam's up. He downloads the resources he needs. Kathy and Adam, my kind of master teachers, are available to have access to download anything. Okay. All right. What else? So you can continue to move forward into this. You can plan some additional lessons if you so choose. This is what the button that you would use if you wanted to add lessons from other resources and children's bonus content, perhaps. Maybe on one of these days you wanted to do an at the movies event. At the movies, and it's really quite current. I believe Encanto is already in there with some supporting resources. Seed Red is in there with supporting resources, and so you can add extra content. Maybe you're saying on Thanksgiving weekend you want to add another lesson, and that's not in here. So we're going to add a bonus content. We're going to add at the movies, add lessons. Okay, now let's scroll to the top. And here you'll see we have 2 at the movie options, Encanto and Turning Red. I'm going to choose Encanto for our at the movie experience for Thanksgiving weekend 2022. Having done that, I'll click done. Now we're into the calendar. You'll see that Encanto has been added. Your leaders can access these materials. Since they're materials for everyone, let's click all, download. And there is the Encanto at the movie study guide. Gather, icebreaker, watch, conversation questions during the film, respond, and various activities and supplies that are needed. So this is just one great example of how versatile Sparkhouse Digital is. If you remember, we created this plan around a specific curriculum: World Classroom, Fall, Gold. But we've decided to add resources that are not part of that curriculum. There's another way to adjust content within a plan once it's already set into the calendar, and that's by way of the edit button. If you recall, this is the same button that was used to assign leaders to a plan. But these 3 fields at the top allow you to alter the kind of content that you have assigned to any given day in your Christian education plans. So, for example, we are in the children's bonus area, the At the Movies and Canto lesson. We can change that to Good Stewards Together. We'll want to include the leader guide. And we want to, on Thanksgiving weekend, choose the food to share lesson. Save. Here you'll see that the Encanto at the Movie experience has been changed out with the Good Stewards Together lesson called Food to Share. That is an intergenerational experience. So many options in Sparkhouse Digital and so many ways to plan and to adjust your plans to fit your church setting. I really feel that the planner and the calendar function, if nothing else for the director, is a useful way to organize your program in Sparkhouse Digital. And as you become more and more familiar with that, and as your leaders become more and more familiar with it, hopefully they'll find it's super convenient as well. I know that when I was first introduced to a learning management system in college, I thought, oh boy, this is really complicated and this is really difficult. But when I began to realize how easy it was for me to get resources at any time, instead of going to the closed reserve area of the library, I had the article in my learning management system that the prof wanted me to read. I think once they become familiar with this environment, it becomes much easier for them to use. And for just kind of on a fun aside, during COVID, people have been doing really interesting things. They've been giving their families access to content on the calendar. So they've made a member of all their families leaders, so that their families wanted to show animated video based on what the pastor was talking about in church on any given Sunday. They could go to that Sunday and see the animated video. I've even heard of confirmation classes that have made all their confirmands leaders in Sparkhouse Digital, and they use kind of a flipped learning module where the confirmands will go in, they'll do some activities, and then they'll have their Zoom call, and in the Zoom call they'll talk about the video, or they'll talk about some activities that the students had access to in Sparkhouse Digital. And so adding leaders and being creative about adding leaders and thinking about all the different content in Sparkhouse Digital, and then assigning content to specific days in the calendar, either by way of the planner, which is sort of the fast way to do it. You can actually assign individual lessons, and in fact, individual elements of each lesson to a date in the calendar, just by drilling into the web page and drilling into a lesson, as I'm doing right here, and adding an individual item to the calendar, which you can do. Carl, wow, adding confirmands as leaders for access to videos is a really great idea. Haven't thought of that one yet. Thanks. Well, and honestly, the more people that you give access to for whatever reason, and let's not forget the value of this, the more people you have that are familiar with working in this environment and can support one another in this environment. So if it seems appropriate, if there's content that you're not using, definitely think about adding someone as a leader who could take advantage of that content. I'm thinking music in particular, worship planners, large group kind of experiences, multi-generational kind of experiences. You know, maybe you're just worried about Sunday morning classroom, but somebody else is worried about, you know, how to create a multi-generational Reformation event. Might not be your thing, but it might be somebody else's. So, all right. Jody says that's great. Engage. Amen, Jody. Certainly, that's how you get your most out of Sparkhouse Digital. All right, with that, we are bumping up to the hour, and I don't see any specific questions. I think, as Jody says, playing with it is a great way to get to know the resources in Sparkhouse Digital and the functions of Sparkhouse Digital. Hopefully, this webinar made you a little bit more courageous in using the calendar and the planner. And as I said, the planner allows you to do like kind of group, massive kind of planning, but you can use, as I'm demonstrating here, the calendar to just pop in. I just want to show a video on a particular day. Boom, pop in the video. Or I want my parish administrator to have access to worship bulletins of print on any given Sunday. You know, sign them up as leaders, add in the worship bulletins for any given Sunday. All right, thank you for hanging with me this hour. Again, this is the second in a series of videos. We're going to really dig into some of the bonus content in the next director training webinar, live webinars, and these are also going to be on-demand versions. I'm going to be editing this one as soon as we're done and popping it into the wearesparkhouse.org webinar page. So with that, God's blessings to you, and take care.